Given enough time and resources, what world problems would you solve? What expeditions would you lead? What diseases would you cure? What truths would you uncover about the universe? Maybe you'd try and invent a time machine or a cure for the common cold. Or, like the American inventor Josephine Cochrane, you might invent something to make life easier. Cochrane, who was sick of chipping her expensive china while hand washing dishes, reportedly proclaimed in 1883, "If nobody is going to invent a dishwashing machine, I'll do it myself." And she did. Cochrane's attitude captured the spirit of the era that we'll cover in today's lesson, which lasted from about 1880 until 1914. In this video, we will focus on our three guiding questions. How and why did industrial powers support scientific and technological innovation? What is the relationship between capitalism, industrialization, and popular culture? And how can advances in science and technology help and harm society? As we move through the lesson, keep in mind our big picture question. What is progress? The period between 1880 and 1914 is known by many names, including the Progressive Era, the Gilded Age, and the Belle Epoque, or Beautiful Epoch. Whatever you call it, this period was characterized by a fascination with social, technological, and scientific progress that pushed human ingenuity, imagination, and ethics to their limits. This era was dominated by a few industrial empires, including Britain, the United States, Germany, and France. In addition to amassing tremendous wealth, these empires were focused on making things bigger, better, and faster than before, leading to even more invention and innovation, or changes that improve on existing ideas, methods, or products. One way industrial powers supported innovation and scientific development was through the creation of public health and sanitation agencies that used science to address the spread of disease. Sanitation engineer George Soper used the scientific method to investigate a series of mysterious outbreaks of typhoid fever. His investigation identified the culprit, a young woman named Mary Mallon, or Typhoid Mary, an asymptomatic carrier of the disease. Soper also uncovered how typhoid spreads and how to prevent future outbreaks. Government funded academies, institutes, and learned societies like the Institute of Radio Engineers also provided support for the arts and sciences. These were dedicated to funding research, facilitating cooperation with scholars across the globe, and advocating for science based policies and education. National and government support also grew out of competition. Each nation wanted to claim credit for the latest discoveries and achievements. In some cases, the competition was informal, like the first transatlantic flight, but there were also formal competitions, like the Olympic Games. Governments also issued patents, official documents that allowed inventors and innovators to claim exclusive ownership of their ideas. However, it was not a perfect system. For example, Alexander Graham Bell is credited with inventing the telephone in 1876. However, Italian inventor Antonio Meucci created the first telephone in 1860. When Meucci failed to renew his temporary patent, Bell stepped in, took the credit, and filed a patent for himself. Let's pause here and respond to the first guiding question. How and why did industrial power support scientific and technological innovation? This era also saw changes in the relationships between capitalism, industrialization, and culture. Industrialization and capitalism had created a new class of wealthy industrialists. Some of these industrialists provided financial support to colleges, universities, and academic societies, while others used their money to fund their scientific hobbies, like hunting for dinosaur bones or tinkering with new inventions. Charles Darwin, for example, relied on his family's wealth and the financial support of public and private institutions to fund his research. Ultimately, Darwin's research led to the theory of evolution. However, not all successful inventors and scientists came from wealth. Madam C.J. Walker, the daughter of poor sharecroppers, created a line of hair care products for black women, which had never before been manufactured on a large scale. She became a wildly successful and wealthy entrepreneur, philanthropist, and civil rights activist. In the United States, stories like that of Madam Walker helped shape the rags to riches and American dream narratives that were based on the idea that anyone could be successful through hard work. In reality, it's not quite that simple. This era also saw a shift in how people spent their money. For most people throughout history, basic survival was the goal. Food, clothing, and shelter made up most, if not all, of a person's budget. However, increased wages combined with the mass production of affordable goods meant that customers could buy products that they wanted, not just what they needed. And how do consumers know what they want? Enter mass media and popular culture. Mass media is the term used to describe different media technologies that reach a large audience via mass communication, like magazines, radio, music, and film. Mass media allowed culture to be shared like never before. This led to the creation of popular or pop culture, a culture based on the tastes and preferences of ordinary people instead of the wealthy elite. Businesses took advantage of mass media and popular culture in two ways. First, businesses created products that appealed to customers' interests and tastes, not just their needs. This is why there are dozens of different kinds of peanut butter at the grocery store. It's all basically the same product, but it also isn't. You know? Second, businesses used mass media to influence demand for products. Advertisements appealed to customer interests, aspirations, desires, and fears, like the desire to fit in or the fear of getting older, to persuade customers to purchase their products. All of this led to the creation of consumer culture, where social status, values, and activities are based on this purchase and use of goods and services. Let's pause here and respond to the second guiding question. What is the relationship between capitalism, industrialization, and popular culture? This period also saw the emergence of new scientific disciplines like anthropology, genealogy, and psychology that sought to answer questions like how do societies form and function? To what extent do our genes influence who we are? And how does the human mind work? But not all of the new scientific disciplines of the era were actually based on science. Instead, they were pseudosciences, or a collection of beliefs or practices incorrectly regarded as being based on science and reason. Equally, if not more dangerous, were the pseudosciences that attempted to combine science with the spirit of innovation in an attempt to improve humanity. One example is phrenology, a pseudoscience that claims the size and shape of a person's head can be used to draw conclusions about their intelligence and character. The use of scientific tools, instruments, and research papers gave the impression that it is real science, but it is not. Perhaps the most dangerous and consequential pseudoscience to emerge from the period is eugenics, a pseudoscience based on the belief that the selective breeding of human beings would result in more perfect people. Eugenics was rooted in social Darwinism, a racist belief that Charles Darwin's survival of the fittest natural selection theory applies to human ethnicities and groups of people. These fields of study were not based in science or reason. However, thanks in part to mass media and popular culture, they were widely accepted as scientific fact. Eugenics was used to justify the inhumane treatment of people who were viewed as inferior. This resulted in experimentation on groups of people, particularly those with disabilities, indigenous peoples, and people of color. Experimental procedures were often performed on patients without their consent. Eugenics was also used to justify genocide, racial segregation, and the colonization and oppression of people around the world. Let's pause here and respond to the third guiding question. How can advances in science and technology help and harm society? This era, sandwiched between industrialization and the First World War, gave us gasoline powered vehicles, insulin, the light bulb, and toilet paper. But it also revealed that while people have the capacity to do and create truly incredible things, we also have the power to cause great suffering. When Einstein published his now famous equation, E equals mc squared, he did not anticipate that it would lead to the invention of the atomic bomb. Alfred Nobel, who created the Nobel Prize, deeply regretted inventing dynamite after his invention was used as a weapon. Perhaps one takeaway from this period of innovation and change is just because we can doesn't necessarily mean we should. Throughout this course, we will continue to examine how technology has shaped our world. As we do so, it's important to consider the consequences of the choices we make because history is everywhere.